Let's talk about just 20 miles south of Boston, Massachusetts, lies a small hamlet called Dover. Now, this town, when I was looking into this and looking into Dover, Massachusetts, it definitely gives you a Stranger Things feel. Like, these creatures, these strange creatures, are attracted to this town. This isn't the first strange creature or first phenomenon that Dover has experienced, and probably won't be the last, or probably isn't the last. It definitely gives you the Stranger Things vibe, which I'm so excited. I think the second part is coming, I think, in a few days. I mean, it would have already came out by the time this goes up, but I'm excited. Like, this last season is intense. Anyways, at 10:32 p.m. on April 1st, 1977, three 17-year-old boys were driving north on Farm Street. Their names were Bill Barlett, Mike Mazzaka, and Andy Brody. Barlett was the one behind the wheel of the Volkswagen. And as they were driving, Barlett spotted something creeping along a low wall of loose stones on the left side of the road. At first, he thought it was like a dog or a cat. You know, you see an animal and like you're kind of looking at it, wondering what it might be, and that's like, it's normal for you to be like, oh, is it this? But then he realized it was something much eerier. As his headlights shone on the creature, he realized that it was something that he had never seen before. The figure slowly turned its head and stared into the light. Its two large, round, glassy, lidless eyes shined a bright orange as the light reflected off of them. It had a watermelon-shaped head that rested on top of a thin neck, and the rest of its body was abnormally thin, except for its oversized head. It had long, spindly arms and legs with large hands and feet. It had hairless skin that was peach-colored, almost looked rough in texture. Barlett described it as being like wet sandpaper. The creature stood no more than 4 feet in height. It had been making its way along the wall, long fingers curling around the rocks, when the car came and surprised it. No one else but Barlett saw the creature. This encounter was so short that by the time that Barlett went to say something to his friends, and I'm sure he was kind of stunned at first, like trying to figure out what the creature was, but by the time he went to say something to his friends, the creature had already disappeared. Barlett dropped his friends off and went home to his home on Walpole Street. So he was visibly upset. Like, you could tell something was not right, and his father noticed. So his father asked him what was wrong. So Barlett told him of the encounter, and then later he sketched what he saw. But this wasn't the end of the creature. Another sighting would happen less than 2 hours later, around midnight. 15-year-old John Baxter was leaving his girlfriend Kathy Cronin's house at the south end of Miller High Road. He started walking up the street to head home. Half an hour later, after walking about a mile, he saw someone approaching him. Because the figure was short, he thought that it was somebody that lived on the street named M.G. Bulchard. So he called out to him, but he didn't get a response. And that's when he realized that it wasn't him. So he stopped and asked, "Who is that?" And because it was dark and overcast outside, all he saw was a shadowy figure. It tried to get a better look, and so he took a few steps forward, but this must have spooked the creature, because the creature then scurried off to the left and started running down a shallow wooded gully and up the opposite bank. As the figure ran, Baxter heard its footsteps on the dry leaves. He then saw the creature about 30 feet away. Its feet were molded around the top of the rock, so kind of curled, and the rock was several feet from a tree. Baxter said that the creature reminded him of a monkey, except the dark figure had a figure 8 shaped head. Its eyes were looking straight at Baxter. And he started to begin to feel uneasy, like this thing is staring at him. I'd feel uneasy if a human was staring at me, so I get it. So he backed up carefully up the slope, and he started walking pretty fast down the road to the intersection at Farm Street. There was a couple that was passing in a car, and they picked him up and brought him home. And later on that day, so after midnight, so that's already the following day, he went to the police and told them of his encounter. Briere had also went to the police to talk about his encounter as well. So the next day, so same day, after midnight, that same day, a girl by the name of Abby Brabham reported seeing the creature along Springdale Avenue. She said that the creature had lifted itself up off of the ground and stood partially upright, looking at her. All of the creatures described the creature as having a body similar in size and shape of a human infant. So its body was really tiny, but its legs were longer, its arms were longer, its head was huge. So, but its body itself, like its torso, its bum, like its body itself was tiny. An incredibly large head had no discernible features minus its large eyes. They couldn't tell if it had a nose, they couldn't tell if it had a mouth, and they couldn't tell if it had ears. Now, many people think that this whole thing is just a coordinated hoax. But there's no indication that any of these witnesses knew what they were saying, like each other was saying to the police, like that they were close at all. So why would they create this hoax if they were, like, they didn't really know each other? That doesn't make sense. Another popular theory is that it's a small moose calf, because that would account for the kind of gangly appearance and the large eyes. However, there were no wild moose in Massachusetts at the time, and it's also the wrong year for moose calves to exist. And on top of that, moose don't stand on their hind legs, and they don't sit on top of walls. They don't have hands that can grip rocks, so I don't think it was a moose calf. Briere also says that there is no way that this was an animal known to man, and that it appeared to be more human than animal, and that it reminded him of a child with a distended stomach, but that he didn't see a mouth, or ears, or nose, only the eyes. Dover demon is a small humanoid that resembles gray aliens, except the skin is more tan instead of gray. It can be bipedal, but it prefers to travel on all fours, but it is common for it to bounce back and forth between walking on two legs to going on all fours to two legs to fours. So I think it moves around faster on all fours, and it allows them to grip things better, like climbing. It wears no clothing, and the other thing that's different about the grays is that the grays are often combined with UFO sightings and abductions. The Dover demon is not. Kinda just wanders around on its own. So since the first sighting occurred, there have been other sightings. And when plotted, the locations of these sightings lie in a straight line, and they all happened near a body of water. So is that a coincidence? Maybe it's living in the water. Maybe the water is a portal of some kind. Like, there has to be some reason why it wants to stay by there. So even eerier, back in 1972, so this was only 5 years before the Dover demon was sighted. Mark Sennett saw a creature in the woods. The creature's eyes glowed when he turned his headlights towards it, which isn't uncommon. The creature was small, and it was deep in the woods where he saw it, moving at the edge of a pond, so by a body of water, which is similar to the Dover demon. He had no idea what the creature was. Was it, like, could this have also been a Dover demon? But then how did it go 5 more years without being sighted? Again, though, if these bodies of water, or a particular body of water in Dover, is a portal for it, then it could have went back, and that's why nobody saw it. This case, or this creature, definitely piqued my interest. I love everything weird and creepy and unusual and different. Let me know if you guys have ever seen anything like the Dover Demon, or what do you think the Dover Demon is? I think it's kind of weird, the name. I mean, the name's catchy, but I don't understand the demon part of it, because it didn't really seem like this creature wanted to hurt anyone. And demons are known to wreak havoc and want to hurt people and all that fun stuff. So I don't get it. Like, I don't get why it was called a demon. Maybe just because it was so unexplained and so strange, but it didn't. It kind of seems like it was curious, but it almost wanted to be left alone. So the very first one is Bark Eater Chocolates. Chocolate sounds really good. So the building of Bark Eater Chocolates was built in 1880, and it was home to one family of several generations, beginning in 1947. It's rumored that one of the children actually died outside home, and then the mother disappeared shortly after. Now, during this, like, in this small town, you know, small towns talk. So in this small town, it was rumored that the father actually killed the mother and buried her in the basement, but that was turned out to be false, because the mother returned sometime later and she had actually ran away. But when she came back, she was completely unharmed. Now, it's been confirmed that the couple that owned the home actually passed away in 2 different rooms of the house. So they both passed away there. Since 2013, when Bark Eater Chocolates purchased the property, nearly every employee had some sort of experience with unexplained sounds. You could hear footsteps and banging on things, and a construction crew that was working on the building seemed to hear footsteps and voices coming from upstairs, and no one was there. Employees have named one of the ghosts, and her name is Miranda. They've learned that she likes the room hot, and she actually used to mess with the thermostat and turn it up until they went and taped the thermostat dial so it wouldn't move. They do actually do like guided haunted tours if you guys do want to check them out, and during the tour, it's actually pretty affordable. It's $25 for 2 to 6 people. I don't know if that's per person or if that's like for your group, but it's probably per person, but still not too bad. And during the tour, you get to make your own like chocolate ghost to take home, which maybe it's just because I like chocolate. I mean, I'm more of a sour candy person, but I do like chocolate still. So the next one is about a haunted road. In Baldwinville, New York, there's a 5-mile stretch of road. I have to stop talking with this hand because it's making my wrist hurt. But there's a 5-mile stretch of road that cuts through the woods. And it's said to be so haunted that they actually close it at night. Legends say evil groups come out at night to meet on Whiskey Hollow Road. KKK and Satan worshippers said to have claimed a mile-long stretch in the middle of the road. So, like, I don't know what they do to you if you are there, if they claimed it. So, there many racial killings take place. There's satanic sacrifices. And many of those victims were children whose spirits still remain, which is horrible. Like, I don't understand how people can kill people, like in general, just humans. And I really don't understand how somebody can kill a child. Anyways, some people have claimed to run into the ghosts of these small children wandering the road, while others have actually seen bloody children's blankets hanging in the trees. One girl who grew up just outside of Syracuse says that she never saw anything until her junior year, when she dared the boy that she was dating to get out of the car. And when he did, he saw something that had him running back to the car. He saw a 4-foot wide circle of different animal bones. Stripped all of fur, all skin, all muscle, like just the bones. She said, I know enough about nature to know that there's no way a number of different animal species are going to get together and die within a 4-foot circle. Girl, you're not wrong. And there's no way those animals are going to stay undisturbed by scavengers long enough to have all the material decomposed completely off the bone. Again, not wrong. So that was most likely a ritual. Now, she's not the only one who has had experiences. Many different people have. But there's been accounts of people's dogs literally whimpering, staring at the woods. And dogs and cats, like animals, are so much more in tune to the spiritual realm. So they know that there's something that's not quite right there. So would you dare to go on this road at night? Would you dare to enter those woods? And what would you do if you came across these people that are doing these horrendous things? Because the children, the ghost children, wouldn't scare me. But the people, now that's a different story. This urban legend is called Look at Me. And it goes, one evening, I was in my junior year of high school. My mom and dad went out, leaving me home alone. I had a lot of homework to do, so I was sitting at my desk in my bedroom. My parents left the house around 6 p.m. while I was doing my homework. So I put on my headphones and I listened to loud music. There was a big storm that night, and my desk was facing the window, so I could see the rain and the lightning outside. My parents got back around 11 p.m. When I saw their car drive up, I took off my headphones. As soon as my mom opened the front door, came inside, I heard her shout my name. Ow. So I wire wrapped the trees by hand, and I cut up my hand a little bit this last time I did it. Anyways, back to the story. So I heard her shout my name. Confused, I ran down the stairs. My mom was standing in the doorway. She pointed at the floor and yelled. I looked down and saw that the carpet was covered in mud. I have no idea how those got there, I said. I spent the entire evening doing my homework. I watched as the look of her face changed from anger to fear. We both realized at the same time someone was in the house. We followed the trail of footprints, trying to make sense of it. It started at the back door, which we usually left unlocked, but they also were leaving through the back door. All of a sudden, we heard something loud, a pounding noise in the house, and the sound of the front door being wrenched open and then slammed again. We went into the garage and locked the door behind us. My mom took out her cell phone and called the police. Please come quickly, she shouted. Someone's in our house. After what seemed like hours, a patrol car arrived with 2 police officers, a male and a female. One officer stayed with us in the garage, while his partner went through the house, searching it room by room. When she came back, the female officer told us there was no one in the house and it was safe to go back in. As we were all breathing a sigh of relief, she asked, whose bedroom is upstairs on the left? My parents looked at me. It's mine, I told the officer. She asked us to follow her. As we walked through the house, we could see the trail of muddy footprints leading from the back door, through the living room, through the hallway, up the stairs, into my parents' bedroom, and then toward my room. They stopped at my doorway. The female officer pointed at my door, which had been open the whole night. Scrawled on it in black marker was the following: 8:47. I see you. 8:53. You forgot to lock the back door. 8:59. You seem focused. 9:24. Turn around. 9:47. Look at me. 10:15. Look at me. 10:37. Look at me. 10:49. Look at me. For more than 2 hours, someone had been standing in my doorway watching me. To this day, I still shudder to think what would have happened if I had turned around. Oh. So I'm currently home alone, and at least it's not dark. But that, awful, just awful. Imagine that. Imagine just you're so focused and you're working on something. It's like, do you ever get the feeling, because I get it all of the time, that someone is watching you, and you just get that, like, the chill down your spine. And imagine, like, the evidence, like, finding that someone was there watching you and you had no idea. I feel like I would just, it would send my anxiety through the roof. Have you guys ever had anything like that happen? I know I've always been afraid of, like, somebody breaking in. That is probably one of my worst fears. I cannot imagine that happening. I mean, luckily we have cameras, so that kind of helps with the fear, but I won't even leave the windows downstairs open at night. Absolutely not. Jeff partially thinks I'm crazy, but no. It creeps me out. Like, people, not everybody, of course, but there's so many, like, crazy people. You don't know what they're gonna do. You don't know what their intentions are. So I can't imagine just not locking a door. Like, leaving a door constantly unlocked. No thank you. Oh, my nose. Sorry. Being sick is one of the worst things. When I worked at Box Lunch, it motivated me so much to see my clothing. And now that I don't work there, just slacking. But anyways, you guys, we are going to be talking about the urban legends, the babysitter and the man upstairs. Now, this urban legend has inspired so many movies, including movies like When a Stranger Calls, which is an awesome movie, but it's also super creepy. And especially, like, just the idea of somebody being in the house without your knowledge. Like, Jeff and I have been, like, house hunting and stuff, and I don't know how many times I've said I don't want any dead bodies in the walls, and that, well, I guess I should, I'm scared that, like, you know, like, I think it's The Haunting in Connecticut. That's based off a true story, but, like, all the bodies they find in the walls, like, that terrifies me. Because how would you know? But also, like, crawl spaces. Crawl spaces creep me out so much. I don't even know what I do. I mean, obviously call 911, but, like, besides that, I don't know. Like, I'd be so terrified. I don't want somebody in my house without me knowing. But anyways, we should get on to the story. So a married couple were going out for the evening, and they called on a teenage babysitter to babysit for them. So they had 3 children. So when she arrived, they told her that they'd probably be out pretty late and the kids are already asleep, so she doesn't need to disturb them. So the babysitter started doing her homework while she was waiting for her boyfriend to call her. Now, after a little while, the phone rings. She answers it and hears no one on the other end. She just hears silence. Whoever it is hangs up. After a few moments, the phone rings again. This time, there's a man on the other end. And he says, "Have you checked on the children?" Then he hung up. At first, she thinks it's the children's father calling and that the call just got interrupted or he got interrupted. She just decided to ignore it. She goes back to doing her homework and then the phone rings again. "Have you checked on the children, Mr. Murphy?" she asked. But then the caller hung up again. So she decided to call the restaurant where the parents were supposed to be having dinner. But when she asked for Mr. Murphy, she was told that him and his wife had left the restaurant like 45 minutes earlier. So then she called the police and said that a stranger keeps calling and hanging up on her. The dispatcher asked if he had threatened her, but when she said no, the dispatcher said that there's nothing they could really do about it. Which, like, you would think that the dispatcher would be like, "Well, we can send somebody out just to be sure." Because obviously this girl is a little shaken up. Now, a few minutes go by, and she gets another call. "Why haven't you checked on the children?" the man said. "Who is this?" she asked. But then he hangs up again. So she calls 911 again and says that she's scared, that she knows he's out there, and she knows that he is watching her. The dispatcher asks if she's seen him, where the girl replies no. So then the dispatcher goes, "Well, there isn't much we can do about it." Which that just frustrates me. Because, again, they could have sent somebody out there to make sure. Now, the babysitter went into panic mode, which is exactly what I would have done, and pleads them to help her. So the dispatcher is like, "Okay, it'll be okay. Give me your name and your street address and try to keep him on the phone for at least a minute and we'll try to trace him." So he asks her for her name, which she replies, "Linda." And then he says, "Okay, Linda, when he calls back, we will do our best to trace the call, but just keep calm. Can you do that for me?" She said yes and then hung up. She decided to turn the lights down to see if she could see anybody outside. And then the phone rang again. "It's me," the familiar voice said. "Why did you turn the lights down?" "Can you see me?" she asked. He paused for a little while and then responded, "Yes." "Look, you scared me," she said. "I'm shaking. Is that what you wanted?" "No." "Then what do you want?" she asked. And then he responded, "Your blood all over me." So she slammed the phone down, absolutely terrified, which I would be too. Almost immediately, it rang again. So she screamed into the phone, "Leave me alone." But it was the dispatcher calling back, and he was very urgent. "Linda, we've traced the call. It's coming from another room inside the house. Get out now." So she is hysterical, and she runs to the front door, attempting to unlock it and go outside. But she finds that the chain at the top is still latched. The time that it takes her to unlatch the top chain, she sees a door open upstairs. Now, light streams out from the children's bedroom, and she saw a profile of a man right inside it. She finally got the door open and she ran outside, only to find a cop right outside with his gun drawn. So at this point, she realizes that she's safe. But when they capture the intruder and drag him down in handcuffs, she notices that he's all covered in blood. Come to find out, he killed all 3 of the children. So with this urban legend, it's absolutely terrifying. Just the idea of somebody being in the house and you have no idea about it, and just somebody saying those things to you, I think the dispatcher definitely should have tried harder in the beginning because it might have saved those children. But on the other hand, he's asking her from the very beginning, have you checked on the children? Which to me kind of seems like he already killed them and he's just trying to lure her into the children's bedroom. But this one is probably one of the urban legends that terrify me the most, simply because I just hate that idea. But I want to know what you guys think. I know that I babysat for a little while, but I babysat in my own home. I didn't go somewhere to babysit, and not all the time, but most of the time, like, my mom was home and stuff. So I never really got put in that kind of situation, but obviously now, like, I have my son. We are going to talk about the urban legend called The Killer in the Window. Now, this urban legend is also called The Killer's Reflection and the Face in the Window. So before I dive into this urban legend, windows creep me out a lot, especially at night. Like, you know, during the day, they're beautiful to look out of. I love the windows open. I love the blinds open. I love the natural sunlight. But at night, I can't sleep if a window is open. I can't sleep if there's no blinds. I have been like that since I was like 5. And if you guys haven't seen my paranormal story where I dive down why I can't do that and why windows scare me, definitely make sure to go and check that one out. I think it's called like Don't Look Out the Window or something along those lines. If you go into my Paranormal Life series, then you will instantly find it. But anyways, enough rambling. Now, this legend goes. It was a cold winter night and this girl was home all alone watching TV. The television was right by a sliding glass door and the blinds were open, which, no. Suddenly, she saw a wrinkled old man staring at her through the glass. Which, can you imagine that? She screamed. And she grabbed the phone and threw a blanket over her head while she called the police so the guy couldn't see her calling the police. But then you can't see the guy. Then you don't know where he is. Like, as much as seeing something terrifying like that is, I would want to, you know, keep an eye on him as I'm calling the police, because then I can tell them exactly where he is. I know I am a distance from him. If I'm not going to, you know, run out of the house and try to escape, I am going to keep an eye on that person. Because, like, I mean, do my best on, like, making sure that I'm out of vision for them, but I'm not going to hide under a blanket. Now, it had snowed a ton that day. So the police's natural reaction was to look for footprints, because if somebody was there, then there would have been footprints in the snow. So, pretty logical. But there were no footprints at all on the outside next to the sliding door. So the police were confused about this, and they decided to go back inside. And that's when they saw the wet footprints on the floor leading up to the couch where the girl was still sitting. So the policemen looked at each other and they were very nervous, and they looked at the girl and said, "Ma'am, you're extremely lucky." So she responded, "Why?" "Because," the police officer said, "the man you saw wasn't outside. He was standing right behind you, and what you saw was his reflection." Like, oh my gosh, you guys. Can you even imagine? That would be insanely terrifying. And just to think that she was hiding under a blanket as she was calling the police. So he could have attacked her at any time. I mean, in a way, the like reflection kind of saved her, but if you're home alone at night, please lock your doors. So there's another story that goes along with this urban legend. And it involves a 15-year-old girl who was babysitting her little sister while her parents went out to a party. Now, she sent her sister off to bed around 9:30 p.m. and decided to stay up and watch her favorite TV show. So she sat in her recliner with a blanket and watched her show. So the show ended around 10:30, and she decided to move the recliner to facing the window because she wanted to watch the snowfall. So she was there for about 5 minutes when she noticed a strange man walking toward the glass from outside. She sat there staring at him as he stared back at her. So then he started to pull a shiny object out from under. She instantly thought it was a knife, so she pulled the covers over her head. Which, again, with the covers, why? Just why? After about 10 minutes, she slowly pulled the covers down and he was gone. So then she decided to call 911, which should have just skipped to that part instead of the covers. They examined outside for footprints and there were none to be found. The cops then went back inside to tell her that they hadn't found anything, when they realized that there were wet footprints leading up to the chair where she was sitting. The cops told her that she was very lucky because the man was not outside and he was actually standing right behind her, and what she saw was his reflection. So if anything like this does ever happen, immediately call 911. Immediately check your surroundings. Do not put the blanket over your face. And just remember to be safe and always lock your doors. Always pay attention because you just never know. And I want to know what you guys think about these stories and this urban legend. It's one that I find insanely creepy. I have always said that humans are far scarier than the paranormal. I was even telling Jeff the other day that I would much rather be trapped in a haunted house, like a known haunted house, where there's a ton of paranormal activity with real spirits, than go into a haunted house. Because you never know who the person is behind that mask. You never know their intentions. And how closely do you actually think they're monitored? I mean, I know that some are monitored a decent amount, but there's ones that aren't. But today we are going to be talking about urban legends. Urban legends from New York. So New York is where I live, where I'm from. So I'm really excited to dive into these. The first one is called Ghost Trains Carry Souls Across Hell Gate Bridge. So Hell Gate Bridge is a vast steel and stone construction that straddles the East River in New York City. It's said that it's haunted by ghostly trains that carry the souls of the dead. Local legend tells that the trains carry the souls of the people who drowned or had their bodies dumped in the river, which is just very disturbing. People who climb the bridge often see strange lights from trains that never actually arrive. So they'll see the lights of a train coming, but the train never gets there. Mafia victims, old Dutch explorers, and suicide victims all sit next to each other in the carriages, sharing one last ride in the afterlife. Or maybe their souls are actually trapped on the train, which is way worse. So the next one, I don't have the name of this one, but so the next one is about an old military base. And it's said that this place was actually an inspiration for the hit Netflix series Stranger Things. So this is Montauk, New York. So it's an old military base called Camp Hero that is now abandoned. And it serves as a state park. It is said to have been the site of top secret Black Book experiments in the 1960s and through the 1980s that involved alien contact, psychic experiments with children, and even time travel. So in Stranger Things, you know how Eleven is experimented on and that's how she has her abilities. So that's kind of where that falls in. But I'm one of those people that believe that, you know, aliens are here because everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I just don't think that we're the only beings in the entire universe. So it would make sense if aliens were here, that the government was either experimenting on them or working with them. So most of what we know about this site comes from an electrical engineer who claims he worked at the site during for a period of time. And his name was Preston Nichols. According to Nichols, the facility was built to turn kidnapped children into psychic soldiers using technology supplied from alien spacecrafts. That is a terrifying theory. So, like, were they the one actually kidnapping children? Because that is in no way okay. Nichols says that he interacted with at least 3 different alien species at Camp Hero, and that the research team that were working there ripped a hole in space-time in 1983. If you guys want me to dive deeper into this military base or ex-military base, definitely hit the like button and I will. So the next one is about an Air Force in Plattsburgh. So this place has been subject to strange experiences throughout the years, but it is no longer an active military base. There are many different haunted hotspots in the old base, including the gym, which was once used on base as the morgue, and where witnesses have heard screaming and pounding, and at the cemetery where ghost soldiers are said to march through the night. There have also been reports of spirits reenacting battles from the French and Indian War, and a Revolutionary War era ghost who guards the base entrance. So sometimes spirits don't actually know that they're deceased, which is really sad, but so they're kind of trapped in like a time loop. So they will just keep reliving things over and over again and they think that that's reality. They think that they're actually living it, even though they're not. There's even a notorious building, 666, the devil's number, which once served as the base crematorium and now hosts a revolving door of soldier ghosts, according to reports by some security guards. It's actually quite common to hear old military bases being haunted or places where wars were held because there's so much trauma there and there's so much death. So the next one is about a ghost ship on the Hudson River. So since the days of old New Amsterdam, local people in the Hudson Valley have been reporting of a mysterious ship with no known flags that sails down the river, bringing violent storms in its wake. The ship often moves against the tide and nearly always appears without a crew. A couple hours after the ship goes through the area, a huge thunderstorm comes in. The ship's origins are unclear. Some believe it to be a remnant of the Half Moon, which is the ship that Henry Hudson actually piloted himself on his own journey up the river. Other people, especially Dutch settlers, have believed that it has been summoned by evil fairies to bring ruin and menace over the areas of humans. I mean, the fairies are a very generalized term. So, I mean, there are water spirits that are, fairies, because they're typically, there's a lot of different subspecies of fairies that are in one family. Like the fairy that most people think of when they think of a fairy, the one with the wings, they are in the same category as leprechauns or hobgoblins, even though they look nothing alike. So they would also be in the same category as, like, mermaids. It's just a different type of fairy, because fairy is a very broad term. So in this case, it would probably be the old Dutch, or people who think that it's fairies. It would be like a water spirit that's conjuring this ship and these storms, which a lot of water spirits do have control over the weather, or it's said that they do. So who knows? So the next one is the White Lady of Rochester. So ladies in white are very common ghost manifestations. This specific lady in white endlessly searches Durand Eastman Park for her missing daughter, and she is accompanied by her 2 spectral dogs. I can't imagine just forever searching for Sebastian. So the most popular version of this story says that the White Lady of Rochester is a ghost of a woman from the early 1800s whose daughter was kidnapped, raped, and murdered by a local farmer. The mother searched the marshy land day and night trying to discover where her daughter was, but she never found her. Eventually, it got too much for her, and she actually threw herself off a cliff into the waters of Lake Ontario. One of the hardest things for a parent would be to lose a child. If actually probably the hardest thing. So, and especially, I feel like it makes it so much worse when you don't have an answer, you don't have any sort of closure, you never find them. I can't even imagine, you guys. But now her spirit is stuck wandering because that is her unfinished business. When she jumped, her dogs went after her and ended up joining her. So I've already done a story on Bigfoot, or multiple stories on Bigfoot. So if you haven't seen my Bigfoot video, definitely check that out. But New York is no exception to being a hotspot for Bigfoot activity, which is one of the most classic urban legends that there is. There was even a man who actually encountered Bigfoot twice in a span of just a few years. So it first happened on June 25th, 1989. Scott David Harris and 2 friends were looking for one of their brothers, who was lost in the woods late at night. They were walking along a railroad that followed Lake Champlain's shoreline, and Lake Champlain is the host of Champ, which I also did a video on if you guys want to know more about him. We heard a lot of awful thrashing, growling, and metal ripping noises coming from the south bank of the trail. And whatever it was seemed to hear them too, because the noises suddenly stopped and it came over to check them out because it was curious. So Harris couldn't get a good look at the creature because it was dark, but as his friends ran off, he stuck around long enough to feel its breath and realize it was pretty big. When he ran, it chased him. It only stopped its pursuit when Harris and his friends broke out of the woods and onto the nearby road. So, like, obviously it didn't really want to be seen, and I'm curious because there's a lot of encounters with Bigfoot that are, like, terrifying. And, you know, people hear Bigfoot and it's kind of almost a joke because of how popular this urban legend is. But they're not supposed to be these, like, cute, friendly creatures that you encounter. They're supposed to be terrifying, and I wonder what their intentions actually are. So Bigfoot wasn't done with Harris yet, and I'm sorry for all the traffic, you guys. Usually this road isn't that busy, but apparently today it is. So a few years later, in 1993, Harris was parked on a trail near Westport, New York, with another friend, and they were waiting for a party to start, when he saw a huge, black, hairy creature coming out of the woods and reaching for the car's rear door. Harris alerted his friends, who immediately drove away. And Harris saw the creature rear up in the car's lights with its glowing eyes. But, oh my gosh, imagine if, like, Bigfoot just jumped in your car. It just took a casual car ride with you. That would be really cool. I think, anyways. There was actually a bear recently, not that far from here, and I really wanted to go see it, but it was probably gone, so. I want to see a bear, and I want to see a moose. We've seen foxes, we've seen coyotes, we've seen, like, different animals like that, but I really want to see a bear and a moose. Like, in the wild. Not even so much, like, even if they, like, wandered into the backyard, I just want to see them. But anyways, you guys, those are all of the urban legends that I have for you today. If you want me to dive into any more, like more in-depth diving into it, definitely hit the like button. Tell me which one interests you the most in the comments down below. And if you have not subscribed yet, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I love you guys so much, and I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. Until next time, bye guys.